The Mint Decavitator is a middleweight Splatana that was released in Splatoon 3 in June 2024, making it the newest Splatana to the series. It behaves slightly different to the other Splatanas and can feel less intuitive when first using it, so let's talk about how you can get the most out of it in SalmonRun. Stats. The Mint Decavitator is the strongest Splatana in the game, but it's also the slowest and most ink hungry. Like all Splatanas, it has different damage and ink usage for how you fire the weapon. Splatanas have a swing projectile, a melee hitbox, and then the combined total of both. Its uncharged swing projectile does 120 damage from a distance, and if there is contact, it does 180 damage in total. The melee hitbox deals 60, so combined with the swing projectile, this does 180 in total if you're close enough to an enemy. You may also hear these referred to as tap shots. You get approximately 40 of these per full ink tank. It has a much wider hitbox when compared to the other Splatanas and fires horizontally as opposed to vertically, meaning you can hit multiple enemies at once. This is a key part of the weapon. You always want to be damaging as many enemies as you can. Its charge swing projectile, which is when you fire it off with a small charge hold, deals 200 damage from a distance, and if there is contact, it deals 450 damage in total. The melee hitbox deals 250 damage on contact, so combined with the charge swing projectile of 200, this is 450 total when you're close enough to an enemy. You may also hear this being referred to as a crit slash. You get about 14 of these per full ink tank. Because of its horizontal swing, you're able to hit 450 damage on multiple targets with one slash, which is quite busted in comparison to most other regular weapons in the game. You won't always hit multiple enemies for full damage, and you'll notice varying degrees of damage for enemies within the AoE of the decav. Regardless of this, you should always aim to hit multiple targets at once, and it's how you should be using this weapon for the majority of situations. Like the other Splatanas, you can target enemies and lunge forward with the charge swing. The only issue that the decav has is that it's slower than the other two. Its end lag after attacking can take some getting used to. It also has a slower fire rate and a slower ink refill compared to the other two, but I'll talk more about these at the end of the video. The decav paints really well for itself, and I often find that tap swings are the more time and ink efficient way to paint maps and routes. Weapons that have strong fighting power don't feel the benefits of splat bombs as much as weaker weapons. I'd avoid using bombs as your main weapon far exceeds anything you can do with a bomb, except for the obvious bosses that require them. After a bomb, you're left with enough ink for 4 charge swings, and if you're a Splatana without the ability to splat, what are we even doing here? Boss slaying. The Decavitator can slay all bosses and enemies in the game without much difficulty at all. Because of its 450 crit slash, you're able to one-shot or substantially damage all enemies you can get your hands on. Bosses that have 500 HP, such as Scrappers, Still Ills and Slamming Lids, are no problem for the decav. The same goes for enemies like Flipper Floppers and Fish Sticks. You have the range, paint and power to easily manage them. In addition, Stingers are easy to manage either by tap-shotting them from a distance or crit slashing them up close and hitting multiple pots at once. Because you have such high DPS, bosses that have 1200 HP, such as Big Shots, only take 3 crit hits. Drizzlers only need 2 direct crit hits. As mentioned before, I'd limit bombs for when they're absolutely needed, such as Flyfish and Moors. For everything else, you really want to use your main weapon if possible, especially because you can hit multiple enemies at once, thus making it possible to be extremely efficient with enemy boss cycles and time management. Talking about boss cycles, you might find Steelheads tough when first using this weapon. Because it fires slower than the other two Splatanas, and it fires horizontally instead of vertically, it isn't as easy to time your slashes if you're not used to it. Up close, you can crit slash it and one-shot it, but for most cycles, you'll want to aim one charge slash and then quickly follow it up with a tap shot. This ensures you defeat it within the small time frame you can. For King and Night Waves, your main focus will be slaying, as expected. For the Kings, you'll likely be a good candidate to rotate around the map and manage bosses, but I'd also recommend focusing on the Kings itself due to the power and the range you have. For Glowflies, you may find tap shots easier, but I'd recommend using crit slashes to hit multiple chum when there's goldies nearby. For Grillers, you are one of the best weapons in the game to stun them, provided you can do this safely. To stun them is 400 damage. One crit shot does this job. It's important important you stay alive and concentrate on the grillers when you have the decav, as you have the power for this round. For all other night waves, you can fit in wherever you're needed. And finally, the Decavitator is one of the best weapons in the game for managing lessers. I'd personally argue it's on par with the Dynamo for this job. Due to its large hitbox and horizontal slash, you're able to hit multiple small fry, chum and cohawk with one hit. Better yet, cohawks have 400 HP, meaning with just one crit slash, you can slay multiple of these at once. I'd urge you not to neglect this or feel like lesser management is beneath the role of the decav. Its damage, area of effect and range all make it very efficient for clearing lessers. Weapon role. Splatanas are a weapon class that are a law unto themselves, and I really do mean that because I think they have zero comparability to any other group, and as a result, any other specific role. The decav can do it all, much the same for the rest of the Splatanas in its class. And so when you're using this weapon, you'll be doing everything. Do you want to be a boss slayer? No problem, line them up. There isn't a boss you can't manage. Do you want to support your team with slaying instead? No problem, the decav works well with pretty much all comps and can assist damaging enemies with its range. I never really encourage playing defensively or passively, and as a rule I encourage you to play more aggressively most of the time, but when needed your decav can safely protect itself, manage basket spawns independently and paint for itself and its team, allowing it to be used with more caution. The decav is a straight up killing machine that allows itself to work its way into any comp, as it has the ability to either lead on slaying or work really well with other weapons. For me, one of my favourite ways to use it is to be on lesser control. I mean, the way it just deletes all cohawks is too irresistible to pass up. Not many weapons in this game can do this, and some of the only others that can are the other Splatanas themselves. So for me, if the comp allows it, I'll use this weapon in a way that supports my team, which usually means controlling lessers and helping with slaying. However, you will find yourself in comps where the decav is the only outright slaying weapon, and I want to stress that if this is the case, you'll want to be up front and slaying everything in its way. With a crit slash of 450, you'll want to be up close and fighting everything you can. Whilst you can't one-shot most bosses, you can heavily damage them, resulting in an easier time for your teammates and more efficiency with cleaning up messy situations. Pacing. Something that may strike you as difficult when first getting to grips with this weapon is that it does not attack or fire the same way as the wiper and the stamper, and we've had those two weapons for much longer and as a result gotten more comfortable with how they work, almost expecting all newer Splatanas to work the same way. When the decav came to the game, it forced us to learn a new way of playing with Splatanas, and it forces you to be smart with your pacing. When I talk about pacing, I mean knowing what your next move is before actually doing it. It's about anticipation of the next move. It's about weighing up the enemies on the field and your ability to slay them, survive and throw eggs back. With a decav, you'll likely struggle with its slower charge when compared to the other two Splatanas and the resulting end lag. Every encounter you have, you'll need to factor these mechanisms in. It's the same as any weapon that has a charge time. You'll simply need to play around that rather than refusing to engage with it. With the decav, its slowness shouldn't put you off. Its power more than makes up for that. You just need to learn boss cycles, boss spawn times, and how to move around lessers on maps. The decav can feel punishing if you overextend yourself and run before you can walk. Rushing into a big shot and missing a steelhead bomb and charging into the back of a scrapper will all happen if you don't pace yourself properly. You'll need to decide what you can crit, what you can tap shot or slash, and when you need to back off, find safety to recover ink and take a breather. Like all other weapons, specials are there to expedite a process, and I'd recommend them if you struggle with the flow of the decav. But when you learn how to manage boss spawns with it, you'll discover how it is only one of a handful of weapons in SalmonRun that can not only do everything, but do everything so easily that you almost feel like you're cheating. I hope this video helps you appreciate the Mint Decavitator a little bit more. I'll catch you guys soon.